Hello everyone, welcome to lesson 6-2. Find percent of a number mentally. Now, mental math is a very useful skill, a skill that we're going to use for day-to-day life as we get older and we get into our jobs, or just simply to figure out simple equations in life. So this is going to be a very important lesson, and I hope you pay close attention. Let's take a look at the real world connection. Okay, real world link. Whoop. Thrill rides. Do you enjoy thrill rides? Percents can be used to describe the experience, whether you are traveling 17 miles per hour through twists, turns, and loops, or being blasted up and down 300-foot tall towers. We often use percents too to describe how far we've traveled. Let's say I'm waiting for you at a different city and I call you as you're driving there and I ask you, whereabouts are you? You could say, I'm 50% of the way. Now you see here, 50% of the way. If I'm waiting over here for you and you're driving and you're 50% of the way, you're right here. So I know right away that you're halfway. Now obviously that's just an estimation. It's hard to identify if you're actually 50% of the way. But find the percent of a number mentally. The number line shows common percent fraction equivalents, so we have to get familiar with these numbers. I've mentioned many times in the past that you should memorize how to count by eighths, so that you know that 1/8 is 12.5%. Now, this would be 2/8, right? Because 1/4 is the same as 2/8, 25%. And then we go to 37.5% in here if you're counting by eighths. But these are very common landmarks that we use when we are talking about percentages or fractions of a number, of a whole. 12.5%, 25%, 40%, 50%, 66 point, this would be 66.6%, right? So 2/3, 75%, 87.5%, 100%. These are common. And here is essentially the summary of the skill that you need to learn. This would be something very practical for you to write down. It could take a little while to have it, but as you write it down, you will become more familiar with it and it will go into your subconscious memory. These are counting by fourths, as you can see here. 1/4 is 25%, 2/4, 50%, or two or a half, 3/4, and 100%. Okay? Counting by fifths, counting by tenths, counting by eighths, and counting, now this is a little more irregular, but counting by 1/6, 1/3, 2/3, 5/6, and so on. Okay? When you compute with common percents like 40 or 50%, it may be easier to use the fraction. It may be easier to use the fraction form of the percent. So for example, if I say, instead of saying I'm 50% there, I could also say I'm halfway there. So that would be the fraction portion of it. Okay? Or over here, if I'm done, let's say I ate 40% of the pizza, and the pizza only had 5 slices, I could just simply say I ate 2/5 of it, 2 out of 5, right? So it might be easier to use the fraction form of the number. Let's take a look at here. Okay. So how would we describe some of these? Find the percent of each number mentally. What is 75% of 24? So we already know that 75%, obviously, if you have a calculator, you could just simply convert the percentage to a decimal and write 0.75 and multiply it times 24, and that would give you that. But we're not doing that. We're doing it mentally. So 75%, we saw above that it's 3/4, right? 3/4. You can see it right there. 3/4. So what is 3/4 of this number? What is 3 parts of 4 parts of 4? So what you have to identify is, how can I break 24 in 4 parts? Because we're doing 3/4, right? How can I break it in 4 parts? Well, I only need 3 parts. Well, 24 divided by 4 into 4 parts, it's 6. Well, I need 3 of those because we're saying that I only have 3 out of 4. So 3 times 6 is 18. That would be mentally. Okay, over here, 80%. Remember, every time we say the word percent, we're saying per hundred. Per hundred. So if I'm saying 80% of 60, I could also be saying 8/10 of 60 or 4/5 to simplify it. So 80%, 80 per hundred, is the same as saying 8 per 10, or 8 out of 10, which is the same as, if you simplify that fraction, you have 4/5, right? So if you were able to break 60 into 5 parts, you would get, each part would be 12, right? Parts of 12, each one, because 12 times 5 is 60. So now you just need 4 of those. And what's 4 times 12? 48. You see, that's how we would do it mentally. Another way would simply be, without simplifying, you could keep it to 8/10. So what do you have to do the 10, or how many 10s are in 60? 6 of them. So you just multiply the 8 times 6, and you get 48. So that's how you would do it mentally, okay? And here you have it. All right, let's see. 40%. 40%. I'm going to walk you through what it should look like mentally. Or if you want, you go ahead and you write your answers, pause the video, write your answers down, and then see how I do it. Pause now. Okay, I hope you paused the video. The way I would do it mentally, and I'm just going to write down how I think I would be thinking. I think of 40%, 40%, right? I know that 40% is 2/5. Or let me just simplify that for you. I just make it 4/10, put this extra step in the middle, but it's 2/5. Do you see how I just took out the zeros first, right? And then I cut them in half. The 4 became 2 and the 10 became 5. So it's 2/5. Well, 2/5 of 50. Can 50 be broken up into 5 even parts? Yeah, each one is 10, right? So I just need 2 of those 10s, and it's 20. Okay, so 20. 40% of 50 is simply 20. Sorry, this is written wrong. I should not write equal, because this does not equal. This equals 40. That's the 40%. But what we're looking for is 20 out of 50. There we go. That's really what we want to write. But yeah, the number that you are looking for, your 40% of 50, is 20. And that's our answer. Okay, let's try the next one. Again, if you haven't done it yet, go ahead and do it on your own. Okay, if you've already done 1B, now you can watch. If you haven't, please pause now and try it on your own. Pause now. Okay, same thing. So let's just say I have 30%. It's 30 per 100, right? 30%, which is the same as saying 3 out of 10. You take out the zeros, right? Like we've done it before. You take out those zeros. If you do 1 to the top, you must do the same to the bottom, right? So you have 3 10s. How many 10s are in 70? Well, 7 of them. So I only need 3 of them, because we're saying I have 3 out of 10. So how many other? It would be 30% of 70, okay, is 21. Again, I'll run you through that again. How many of these 10s? Because I'm saying I have 3 out of 10. 3 out of 10. Well, that 10 becomes 70. How many of these are in here? There's 7 of them, right? So if I were to break this number into 10s, I would have 7, and I only need 3 of those parts, right? So it's 21. Example 2. Now we're looking for 10% of 76. 10%, it can be said it's 1/10. So if this number could be broken down into 10 even parts, I'm only looking for one part. In order for you to get 1/10 of a number, you literally just have to move the decimal over one place. Because if you were to multiply this number, by the decimal form of this percent, this would be 0.1, as you can see here, 0.1. So when you multiply 0.1 times 76, it's just going to move the decimal over one time. Okay, and you can see that here as well. Now we have 1%. 1% as a decimal form would be 0.01. So now the decimal has moved over 2 places. And when you multiply this number times 122, the decimal is also going to move 2 places. You can see here, and your answer is 1.22. So when it's 1, 10, or 100, or 1,000, it makes it a lot easier. So here it is, 2A. You're looking for 10% of 42. So you're literally looking for 1/10, right? Because 10% is 1/10. Remember, 10% is the same thing as saying 1/10, because there's 1 in 10 there, right? So you're looking for 1/10 of this number. So you're literally dividing this number into 10 even parts, and we only want one of them. If you divide this number by 10, the decimal place moves over once to the left, and it becomes 4.2. Okay? Over here as well. So you've got 1%. Well, 1% is 0.01. Remember, 1% means 1 in the 100th place. So that means this is going to move over 2 times as well, and it becomes 2.64. Okay? Those were easy, right? Okay, let's take a look here at example 3. Let's continue with the same concept, but now we will apply it to a word problem, or what we say a world context. Okay? How does this apply? Hannah has a coupon for 20% off her entire clothing purchase. If the items she buys cost $110 originally, how much will she save with her coupon? So she has 20% off of this number. We're essentially looking for what 20% is off of 110, so that we know how much she saves. Now, this is where you want to use partial quotient. And what I mean by partial quotient is you're going to take a number, and we'll look at how the textbook explains it, but I'm going to tell you how I think of it. You look at a number like 110. 110 is the number 100 and the number 10. If I ask you to give me 20%, I'm asking for 1/5. Remember how many 20s are in 100? 5 of them, and this is only one of them, right? So it's 1 out of 5. 20% is the same thing as saying 1/5. Here, I'll even write it here for you. 20% is the same as 1 out of 5, because there's 120 here and there's 5 of them here. 1 and 5, right? So I'm looking for 1/5. What's 1/5 of 100? Well, it's right there already. It's 20, right? It's 20. And what would be 1/5 of 10? Well, that's 2. It's the same thing, right? Because if I'm going to take out this 0 to make it 10, I should take out this 0 to make it 2. And so then you can just add those two numbers up, and there's your answer. So it's 22. 20% of 110 is $22. So you would save $22. You see it right there? Okay, how does the textbook explain it? Let's see what the textbook is telling us to do. They're telling us that you can take 10% of 110. Oh, this is how we were just doing it mentally. Remember 10%? It moves it over one time. It makes it $11. But it's 10% plus 10%. So $11 plus $11. And there you go. Or $11 times 2. And you get 22. Okay, you see that? 10% of 110 is decimal 1 times 110, which is 11. 20% is the same as 2 times 10%, or 2 times 10% of 110 equals 2. 2 times 11 equals 22. Essentially what they're telling you is find 10% and then double it, and you get your 22. Okay, let's try with this question. I'll read it for you, then you pause it, try it on your own, and then look at the way I explain it. A $750 television is on sale for 15% off. What is the total discount? Okay, so go ahead, pause it, try it on your own. Remember that 15% can be made up of 10%, right? And 5%. Okay? So as a decimal, we have 0.1 and we have 0.05. Okay? That's a hint for you. Go ahead, pause the video, try it now. Okay, so I hope you tried it on your own. So I'm going to find 10% first. That was my hint up here. I'll find 10%, and remember when you multiply something, here's 10% by the way, it becomes 0.1. When you multiply that times 750, you are going to get the decimal moves over one time, right? So you get 75, right? Now, what's half of 75? And why am I asking for half of 75? Well, because now I'm looking for half of 10%, which is 5. And I want to add them both up. So I'm looking for half of decimal 1. I'm looking for 0.05 of 750. Or I can just ask myself, what's half of 75? And that would be 37 0.5. And when I add those two numbers together, I will get my 5 decimal 2, carry the 1 because it's 12, 8, and 3 is 11. So I get 112.5. And just so you know, this is a word question, so it needs to be answered with words. That is how much money I'm going to save. So what is the total discount? Therefore, the discount is $112.50. And that should be your answer. Okay, and now for example 4, notice that we're being asked to estimate. So let's look at the first one. The first one, they're asking us for 26% of 64. Now, 26% is very close to 25%, right? Very close to 25%. And I know that 25% is 1/4, 1 out of 4. So we take our number 64 and we break it up into 4 even parts. And I just want you to tell me what one of those parts is. So when I take 64 and I divide it by 4, I get 16. So there it is. That's my answer. It's 16, right? Now, obviously, you would have to be good with mental math in dividing this number by 4. Or you can do partial quotient, which just means I'm going to take that number and make them into two friendly numbers, 60 and 4. I know that 60 divided by 4 is 15 because a quarter of an hour is 15, right? An hour has 60 minutes. And 4 divided by 4 is just simply 1. So there it is. There's my 16. 15 plus 1, right? B. 2/3 of a number. So I'm going to take this number right here and make it into a friendly number that can be broken up into 3 even parts. The closest one I can think of is 900, right? I have my 900 and I break it up into 3 even parts. And when I do that, when I divide it by 3, I can just go like this, divide it by 3, I am going to get 300. Now, that's not my answer. That's only 1/3. They're asking me for 2. Actually, no, they're not even asking me for 2/3. They're asking me for 2/3 of a percent. But this will still work the way I'm doing it because I'm going to get 2 of those equals 600, right? It equals 600, just like that. And then with 600, I am going to go ahead and now remember that this is 2/3 of a percent. So it's 0.067, right? So I have to move the decimal over. It went from here. It went from 1, 2, right? It went from there because it was 6.7%. Don't forget that. So it's going to move over 2 times. 1, 2, and it becomes 6. Okay? If that doesn't help, if my explanation didn't help as well, you can also look at the way they do it here. And then finally, C. 39% is very close to 40%, and we know that 40% is 2/5, right? Because it has 2 20s in there, and 100 has 520, 40%. So 40% is 2/5 of a number. We have to also make this number into a friendly number that can be divisible by 5. And numbers that are divisible by 5 must end on 0 or 5. So the closest number to this that ends with 0 is 80, right? So what's 80? If you don't know how to divide 80 by 5, again, make the 80 into a friendly number. I'm going to do that down here, right here. I'll do it right here. Make 80 into 50 and 30. You can divide both of these by 5, can't you? That will become 10, and this one will become 6. So it's 16, right? 16 is only one part. We're looking for 2 parts. So 16 times 2 is 32. And then 120%. Wow, we're looking for more than 100%. We're looking for more than that in this number. I'm going to make that number into a friendly number again. I'll turn it into 50. And we're looking for an additional 20% added to the 50, right? Well, can 50 be broken down into 5 parts? Why am I asking that? Well, because it's 20% that I'm doing. 20%, remember, 20 is 1/5, right? And that's the additional component that I'm looking for. I already have my 100%. You see, I have my 100% right here. It's 50. Now I'm just looking for an additional 20%. So I'm looking for an additional 1/5 of this number. And what's 1/5 of 50? 10, right? It's 10. So I'm looking for an additional 10. So this is going to be about 60. And you can see it right there. Okay, again, you're welcome to read the explanation the textbook gives you. I just think sometimes the way I explain it is something you might be more familiar with because we work together consistently. So here we go. We have 92%. 92% can become 90, right? 63% can either become 62, 66.7 or 66 bar notation, or we can make it simply 60%, right? 60%, 90%. Over here we have 75% of 85. We can make that, we can keep that as 3/4, right? 3/4, 75%. Of 85, we need a number of, of 84, we need a number that divides by 4, and this number divides by 4 very well, so we'll keep it as 84. And then we have 130. I'm looking for an additional 30% to the number 90. Okay, so find 30% of 90, and then add it on. Pause the video and try it on your own. Okay, I hope you paused the video. So we have over here 90%, which is the same thing as saying 9/10 of a number. When 9/10, how many tens are in 50? There's 5 of them. Okay. No, how do I explain this? Can you break 50 into 10 parts? Yes, you can. You get parts that are each worth 5. We need 9 of those. So 9 times 5 equals 45. That's your first answer. Okay, let's go over here to B. And we have 205. We want 60%, which is the same as saying 3/5, right? Can this number be divided by 5? Sure can, because it ends in 5. So when we do that, we want to know if this number can be divided by 5. We want 3 parts of that number. Okay, let's do partial quotient again. This number can be broken up into 100, into 100, and into 5, correct? So how many 5s are in 100? 20 of them. How many 5s are in this 100? 20 of them. And how many 5s are here? Just 1 of them. So what do I have all together? I've got 41. So that's only 1/5, don't forget. Okay, that's only 1 part out of 5 parts. I need 3 of those. So when I multiply that times 3, 40 times 3 is 120, and then you have the 1/3 there. Or you can simply do 121, correct? Sorry, I meant to say 123. 3 times 1 is 3, not 3 times 1 is 1. Oh, silly mistakes that I make sometimes. Okay, let's keep moving. Okay, number 4C. We've got 75%, which we know is 3/4, right? So we're looking for 3/4 of 84. Now I know 84 is divisible by 4, because if we fragment the number, or if we make it into friendlier numbers, we have 80 and 4. When you divide 80 divided by 4, you get 20, and when you divide 4 divided by 4, you get 1. So you get 21. That's only 1 part. I'm looking for 3 parts of 4 parts. This is only 1 part of 4 parts, right? So this number times 3 equals 63. Oh, that's the highlighter. I get 63. Okay. Right, now let's do 4D. For 4D, okay, they're asking us for more than this number. They're asking us for an additional 30%. You see, it's 130%. They're asking us for an additional 30% of this number. We're going to make this number friendly into 90, because again, we're just estimating. So that's my 100% right there. My 90 is 100%. I'm looking for an additional 30%. Now remember, 30% is the same as saying 3/10 of a number, right? How many tenths are in 90? Well, we've got 9 of them. So I need 3 of them, right? And for 3 of them, if I make that into nine of them, 3 of them, I'm going to have 27, right? Because 3, 9. So now I need to take that 27 and add it to my 100%, and I get 117, right? 117. If you really wanted to round it, you could also just do 120, but the closer that you can get, the better. So I would take, it's better to take the 117, okay? And finally, our last question. I know these videos tend to get long, so let's take a look at example 5. Mr. Williams orders 4 pizzas for a birthday party. The cost of the pizzas was $57.96. He wants to tip the delivery person 15%. What is a reasonable amount of tip? They're saying reasonable because I think they want us to just give an estimate. Okay. I'm going to take my $57.96, which is very close to 58, and I'm just going to round it right up to $60. Because if somebody asks me, how much did you pay for those 4 pizzas? I'm just going to say about $60. I'm not going to say $57.96 exactly. I mean, some people do, but I like to keep things simple. So now I'm looking for 15%. And remember, 15% is made out of 10 and 5%. So I know that 10% of 60 is 6. And 5% is going to be half of that, right? Because 5 is half of 10. So it's going to be 3. So when I add it to the 3, I get $9. So $9 would be a reasonable tip. And you can see that right there. Okay, let's go ahead and try number 5. Let's read it together, and then we will do the work. I'll show you the work. Haley went to dinner with her friends. Their bill was $48.61, which is very close to 49, which you could just say it's $50. They want to leave their server 15% tip. What would be a reasonable amount for the tip? Explain your reasoning. Okay, so here we go. I'm just looking for $50, and I'm looking for 15%, which is the same thing as saying 10% and 5%, right? 10% and 5%. Well, what's 10% of 50? It's 5, right, guys? It's 10% is just 5. It's 1/10 of the number. And then half of that, because 5 is half of 10, I'm looking for half of this number. I get 2.5. And when you add the 2 together, you get 7.5, or you could say $7.50. There's your $7.50 would be a reasonable tip. Okay, there's your guided practice. Please take a look through it. Make sure you feel comfortable when you complete the guided practice and independent practice. Remember, you can always go back to your examples that you've been writing down to make sure that you know how to do this. So if you have any questions about this, look back to the video or the examples you wrote down, you completed, which are examples 1 and 2, or down here, example 4, example 3 over here, all the way down to example 5. And the same applies for the independent practice. Okay, everyone. See you next class.